Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rosemary Fennick, your webinar host and Senior Diversity and Inclusion Advisor at Benetas's Centre for Cultural Diversity and Ageing. Welcome to our webinar, Culture on the Plate. Great to see so many responses, and we're reminded that to a lot of people, food is more than just nutrition and sustenance. It is a feeling of being satisfied, cared for, and helps us to connect with family and community. We have 3 speakers today, and we'll start with Kaitlyn Dienelt. Kaitlyn is a highly passionate and experienced accredited practicing dietitian. She completed her Bachelor of Nutrition and Dietetics with honours at Flinders University before later completing a Masters of Public Health with the University of Queensland. Kaitlyn has since had hands-on experience working in private practice and across home care, residential and food services within aged care. She currently works as the Assistant Director in the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission's Food, Nutrition and Dining Unit.
Today, I'll be providing a brief overview of the requirements of registered providers with a focus on the strength and quality standards and how these support cultural diversity within a food, nutrition and dining space in aged care. And I'll also be discussing how the standards call upon providers to partner with individuals to ensure that cultural needs are recognised, supported and celebrated. So firstly, I think it's important to note that the Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission, or the Commission, are the national rights-based regulator of Commonwealth-funded aged care services. So our purpose is to protect and enhance the safety, wellbeing and quality of life of older people accessing aged care services in Australia. And we aim to ensure that older people trust and have confidence in aged care services. So our regulatory approach in line with regulation requirements under the new Aged Care Act, the Commission has revised our strategy to increase the focus on empowering older people, building sector capability and holding providers and workers accountable. We regulate to ensure a rights-based approach to quality and safety in aged care. We drive continuous improvement and build confidence as well. Our approach is underpinned by 4 key functions. So we have our safeguarding, our engagement and education, our provider registration, and finally, our complaints function. As you can see on the screen, we have our regulatory diamond, which summarises our approach. And when providers are willing to do the right thing and strive for best practice, we want to support this and support them to continuously improve and celebrate the delivery of high quality care. But when providers are not complying with their obligations and are not willing to change, we will use our supervision model to coordinate monitoring, compliance and enforcement to encourage or compel them to improve. So to start with, I really wanted to touch on what the legislative provisions there are that refer to cultural preferences in food, nutrition and dining. So the provisions for these are referenced within the Aged Care Rules 2025, and these sit under the Aged Care Act 2024. So they contain the details that direct how the law is actually put into practice. So for those providers registered as aged care services, this is within Part 3, the Aged Care Service List under Division 8, Residential care service types, and then under 8.145, the services of residential everyday living. So this describes the care and service provisions for those receiving residential care, where item 9 refers to meals and refreshments, and Part B states that providers must provide or must serve special diets where required to meet the individual's medical, cultural or religious needs. So this can include vegan, kosher, halal or other cultural needs. And for those registered to deliver home and community services or personal care support in the home and community, under Division 3, the delivery of funded aged care services, Rule 14820 describes the requirements for meals snacks and drinks, stating that the provider must at least annually have a dietitian assess the meals, snacks, and drinks delivered by the provider through the funded aged care services. And as part of this, they are looking to ensure that meals are appropriate for the nutrition needs of the individuals that are accessing these funded aged care services, so including those with specialised dietary needs. And noting that these specialised dietary needs include medical, religious, or cultural needs. You'll also find that this is highlighted as part of the meal requirements for in-home aged care. So, following on from this, one of the key responsibilities of the Commission is to monitor risk and manage Australian government funded aged care providers' compliance with the aged care quality standards or the strengths and quality standards. So, those that are registered in categories 4, 5, and 6 must now comply with the strength and quality standards and other obligations as set out in the Aged Care Act 2024, based on those services being delivered or specified in a funding agreement. So each of our standards includes an expectation statement to outline in first person what an older person can expect, then an intent statement for context, a number of outcomes which are each supported by an outcome statement which is enforceable by legislation, and then a number of supporting actions, and these can demonstrate how providers may meet the outcomes. So when we consider this, where do cultural needs and preferences sit within the strength and quality standards? Now that we've obviously considered the legislation, if we look at the outcomes under these strength and quality standards, cultural needs and preferences are referenced multiple times, and those that apply or the requirement for registered providers will depend on the services category or categories that you're registered for based on the types of aged care services being delivered. So I don't have time to step through each of these today in detail, but some of the outcomes that call for providers to specifically consider cultural needs and preferences are listed up here on the slide, and further information is available on our website. So when we consider these in practice, though, to highlight, it really shows the importance of considering personal needs, goals, and preferences of the individual, ensuring these are reflecting cultural preferences. These are documented, regularly reviewed, available across all care planning documentation. And it also highlights that cultural needs and preferences span across more than just one quality standard and are not the responsibility of just an aged care worker, but from the governing body through to those providing care as well. So, continuing this into the food, nutrition, and dining space, specifically under Standard 6 Food and Nutrition, there's a real emphasis on menu planning and design, as well as improving choice on what and when to eat and drink, and providing access to food and drink that meets nutritional needs at all times. This is for those providing residential care. So, outcomes under Standard 6 highlight the importance of partnering with older people living in residential care to understand and provide appropriate and enjoyable food and drink, and understand dining experiences that are in line with contemporary evidence-based practice and that meets their needs, goals, and preferences. So this includes providers meeting individuals' cultural needs and preferences as well. And there's also that experience, this focus on the experience of dining, making sure that it meets the needs and preferences to support social engagement, function, and quality of life. And as we know, appreciating an older person's culture and cultural expression through food is an important way to support their quality of life as well. Looking at where to from here, we as the Commission have produced a suite of resources and guidance materials to support providers to comply with the strength and quality standards. It includes modules, posters, videos, infographics, and specific presentations. We also have webinars available on the strength and quality standards. We're conscious of the importance of tailoring our resources to support the diversity of the sector. So we've developed a dedicated engagement and education readiness programs for both our First Nations and cold older people. With the Aged Care Act 2024 now live, these resources provide further information on how the Act works. Therefore, I encourage you to have a look at them for assistance. The digital provider guidance tool is now also available and designed to provide tailored guidance based on your registration categories and applied to specific roles as well. So it aims to promote best practice in service provision. The guidance isn't prescriptive or exhaustive, but it does contain examples of how you could show that you're complying with each of the standards. I'd also like to take the opportunity to remind you of the Commission's Food, Nutrition and Dining hotline. So anyone within the aged care sector is welcome to call the hotline with inquiries, questions, concerns or complaints. And this, along with the Commission's existing contact methods of emails or inquiries, are supported by our units, speech pathologists and dietitians. So we will provide general guidance and relevant information. We don't provide individual assessment or advise on specific issues, but we have supported through these methods on a lot of cultural needs and preferences. Finally, I also wanted to highlight a lot of our resources available specific to food, nutrition and dining, which have been translated to cold persons as well, and we're continuing to work on this. We have recorded webinars on these priority areas and have a suite of online training modules known as Alice modules that are freely available to aged care workers to enhance their knowledge and understanding of key food, nutrition and dining related areas and issues. We also publish articles via the Quality Bulletin to discuss these matters, and look out for our specific Food for Thought articles that showcase good practice and key considerations for culturally inclusive practices as well. So I encourage you to use and promote these within your networks as well. We also have our QR codes available. So on the left-hand side is information on the strength and quality standards. In the middle, we have our food, nutrition and dining resources. And on the right-hand side are our sector readiness resources. And then moving along, we do have our contact methods from there. So we have the hotline, our email and our website available if you'd like to get in touch with any further questions.
Thank you very much, Kaitlyn. We really appreciate that you've been able to put that cultural lens onto the standards and highlighting areas apart from Standard 6 that give a different angle on the cultural lens. Our next speaker is Craig Brown. Craig is the Manager of Property and Hospitality at Benetas. Craig is a passionate foodie and a chef by trade. Craig has broad business and development and project delivery experience and a proven track record in developing strategy, winning work and managing a growing business. He has experience in working across a range of sectors, including government, health, education, defence, resources and aged care in the development of a sophisticated high-value solutions. Prior to joining Benetas, Craig has owned his own business for 11 years as a hospitality consultant, working with many companies in either business development or hospitality services, including facility maintenance. Now working at Benetas as Manager Property and Hospitality, his role is to steer their services towards a better future for individuals and residents. Craig will share how he has managed preparing Benetas for meeting Standard 6 across multiple sites, both rural and metro here in Victoria.
I'll talk a little bit about Benetas. We're a not-for-profit organisation with over 70 years' experience, and that's in residential aged care, villages, day and night respite, home care and memory support units. So we have the full spectrum there of services, and we cater roughly to 25 nationalities across our portfolio. Also have down there challenges of kitchens. Before I get into it, I think for most of us that do work in kitchens, they do come in different sizes. Sometimes you'll find a kitchen that may have been built for 40 or 50 residents, and over time it's now serving 100, 120 residents. So for all those people out there that are in different stages of kitchen sizes and the expectations now on food, just be kind to yourself and understand there are limitations in what we do at times with the space and the kitchens that we have. Benetas is no different. We certainly have some extremely large kitchens that we can cater for everything. And then we have some smaller ones, and we have a lack of freezer space, lack of cool room space, but you do get around it. You do find solutions. But I just want to put that out there for us all. Preparing for Standard 6, I'm going to say we've been on a journey for a number of years. So I think continuous improvement has always been there. I think Standard 6 has kind of harnessed everyone to take note of what it is. But I also wanted to talk about not only the food experience, but the dining experience. For Benetas, we've really focused on the dining experience. We know that our food is right, but sometimes your dining rooms need a little bit of support. So we've refreshed a number of them. We've actually moved some of them to bigger areas. And through doing that, we've been able to create ambient lighting, fit for purpose tables and chairs. We've actually involved the residents in selecting the materials that we use for the chairs and what colours they will be for the different dining rooms, which has been really positive. We've put TV screens up for menus, so they're bigger, brighter, after hours foods and snacks, so the residents know that there's a central point where there is food and snacks that they can go for. We're certainly making our serveries where there's a self-serve beverage table where you can make tea, coffee, and there's juices there available. And their residents, families can also do that as well. Buffet breakfast in the dining room, we've seen that's something that we've actually recently started across all of our homes, where buffet breakfast is ready from 5 o'clock in the morning. So any older person who decides to wake up early, and there are many, they can come down to the dining room in their pajamas, feel comfortable. There's newspapers available to have breakfast. So that's part of the dining experience that we are putting in place. And obviously during meal times, we have soft music. We've put in beverage trolleys where residents can actually make a choice then and there of what they'd like to select to drink prior or after the meal. So they're just some of the things of the dining experience that we've put in place, and we've actually had really good positive experience or results from the older person. With the food experience, we've always had monthly food forums. And this is where we discuss menu items, what worked, what didn't, and we take that feedback from the residents and make changes to the menu. That's a really good check on where you are headed, if it's in the right direction. Because if you have many complaints, then you know you need to change some menu items fairly quickly. In all of our homes, our chefs will go out at lunchtime in the evening and ask a number of residents, the older persons, how their meal was. And 9 times out of 10, it's great, but it's good for them to actually get some feedback that, perhaps the broccoli was a bit hard. Take note of that. And they're quick changes that you can make. The other thing that we do, we do ask fairly regularly for recipes from families, and we bring them into our menu, and we'll actually put the resident's name into the menu about what the meal is, and that's been really positive. We have an older person's choice day. Choose what you would like on the menu. We leave the menu blank. We let them choose. An example of that recently would have been at our site in Kangaroo Flat, which is regional Victoria. And one resident put their hand up and said, "I want a hot dog," followed by many residents who said, "We want hot dogs." So we put hot dogs on for the day. I'm not exactly sure it passed the dietetic tick, but we did it and the residents loved it. We also have brought in cooking with the chef forums, and that's where we bring our chefs in and we do some demonstrations with residents. We get them up to actually make afternoon tea. So recently, one of the things that we did do, we celebrated Diwali Day for our staff. We had a number of staff that wanted to celebrate that. And that really involved the residents. We brought in some extra saris and we did some dancing, but we also did some cooking. So they all made their afternoon tea, which was a really good thing for the residents and the staff members to actually get involved in. So the residents could actually understand where, I guess, the background to our staff members, and brought them a little bit closer in sharing their meals and their what they like to eat. Another one is the longest lunch. We've been running this for about a year now. It's where we invite 12 to 14 residents, and we set up a separate dining room. A number of our homes have private dining rooms, and we do a special meal, and we revolve that each month, different residents or the older person each month. And we do a special meal. It's served with beer, wine, etc. But what we do get out of that is that we ask the older person, what's working for you at this home? What's not? And it doesn't need to be hosted by the residential manager. Many times it is, but sometimes I actually have my maintenance officer hosting for a men's day or things like that. But anything to actually get them talking about what actually works, what doesn't, but also bring them into conversation with other people that they don't actually sit with in the dining room, and then they get to know that person. So we're really evolving all the residents across each site to actually get involved and make decisions about their dining experience, their meals, their menu. And we've actually had some really good feedback on that. And the other one I'm going to say, making traditional sauces. We've had a couple of residents, one in particular who his background is he's from India. He likes everything hot, as you can imagine, spicy. So we actually had the residents' families' recipes, and we make up separate sauces. And we just serve those sauces to him every mealtime, which he's extremely happy with. And that's how we get around, I guess, some of the cultural differences and how we can achieve that for everyone.
It was great getting an insight in how typically mainstream service across many sites, both rural and regional, and how you have that oversight over the food and dining experiences. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Our next speaker is Henny McMahon. Henny is the site manager at Martin Luther Homes. Henny was born and raised in Germany and migrated to Australia in 2008. Her career is varied in roles and industries, with around 10 years spent in aged care, the industry Henny is most passionate about. Henny was originally trained in a 3-year apprenticeship in hotel management in Germany. Her 20 years in the workforce and her Master of Business and Administration have equipped her with varied experiences and a great foundation to support older persons and lead the site operations. Today, we will be hearing from Henny about the long history of providing culturally appropriate foods at Martin Luther Homes.
Martin Luther Homes is a standalone not-for-profit provider with a 60-year history and journey from independent living village and hostel to the current times of offering ageing in place. We offer all types of care, ranging from independent living to supported home, care apartments, transition care program, residential aged care, memory support units, and specialist dementia care program. We are a certified cold provider with a German heritage. However, we are, of course, welcoming of all cultures and faiths, as you can see in our older person and staff mix. As a standalone provider, we have 18 different birth countries in our older persons who speak collectively 10 different languages. In our staffing mix, we actually have 31 different birth countries or nationalities, speaking a total of 40 different languages. So quite multicultural, but we do maintain our strong bonds to the German heritage there. Now, culturally diverse food is not new for culturally and linguistically diverse providers. Martin Luther Homes and other cold providers have been offering this for many years and decades. It's not just come about through the New Aged Care Act. It's been around for a long time for the cold providers. Some of the challenges that we're finding around offering culturally diverse foods include that cultural food can be very regional and will not necessarily satisfy people from the entire ethnic group. As an example, a curry from northern India may not be perceived as meeting cultural needs for someone from southern regions of India. Also, not everyone from a cultural background will enjoy the traditional foods. I was born and raised in Germany, and I don't like sauerkraut, beer, or sausages, which one might assume all Germans enjoy. It does also ring true for a lot of our older persons, of course. And we also need to consider dietary habits, such as learned eating patterns and preferences. What foods, how, and when did the person eat before entering aged care? If someone always consumed, for example, Asian inspired foods, they may not enjoy authentic Asian dishes any longer. Or if someone only ever ate meat and 3 veg, they may not feel their needs are met with a dish from their ethnic background. Expectations and perceptions can also vary significantly. It's unlikely that as a provider we can recreate a dish as it was prepared at home. And at times we also have the challenge of the memory of a dish being better than the actual real dish, which can lead to disappointment and an older person who does not feel that the cultural food needs are met. In addition, sourcing authentic cultural foods can be challenging and often comes with a significant increase in cost. A lot of the time, our standard suppliers don't carry the authentic, culturally specific items. To manage and respond to these challenges, we co-design our seasonal menus with our older persons, which I will go into more detail in a little while. We lean into the knowledge and experience of the older persons and team members alike to understand and meet cultural needs. We learn from each other. We share recipes, we share insights, traditions, and so on. We communicate with our older persons and their families to set expectations, which of course is an ongoing process. And we manage our feedback, which is a crucial piece in meeting cultural food needs with an ever-changing demographic. We do that through various ways. One, we have a complaints and resolution officer who will respond to every submitted feedback, whether it's formal or informal. Our teams and team leaders will listen to feedback and encourage and support our older people in submitting these. Our complaints and resolution officer and chef manager work with our older persons one-on-one to address negative feedback and specific requests, and involving myself as the site manager as needed. We encourage our teams to chat with the older persons as they go about their business, which allows us to learn about the older person's likes, dislikes, and ways to improve, not just in the food space, but in general. Cultural food is more than a special occasion event. Incorporating culturally diverse foods into the seasonal menus fosters a sense of belonging and reminiscence. Offering special occasion events creates experiences. We're proud to incorporate different cultural foods in our standard menus to cater for our current demographic of older persons. That is not to say that we do not offer special events around culture and cultural foods. For example, we offer On a Jet Plane, a culinary trip to a destination set up with decorations, music, and of course, foods and drinks. Most recently, we went to Paris. We offer armchair travels, which usually incorporates a taste of the destination and other activities that involve food samples and tasting to match the activity. We hosted an Asian-inspired evening where we transformed one of our spaces into an Asian restaurant and took some of our older persons out for dinner. We hold cooking demonstrations and tastings for our older persons, which aren't necessarily culturally specific, but when they are, we involve our team members in facilitating and sharing their cultural food making skills. We also celebrate events such as International Chocolate and Pizza Day, because of course we all love chocolate and pizza, no matter our background. And of course we have events like Oktoberfest and Australia Day Barbecue on our calendars as well. Our lifestyle team ensure that we host different culturally inspired events throughout the year, which is suited to our current cohort of older persons and incorporate our staff culture. I now want to take a few moments to talk about co-designing menus because it is so important. As our demographics always change, which is the nature of our industry, our menus need to also change, not just seasonally. We use a number of mechanisms to co-design the seasonal menus with our older persons. We utilize the feedback we receive to develop insights into preferences and dislikes, as I described before. One of our chefs will interact with the majority of our older persons one-on-one weekly. This allows the catering team to understand the older persons, learn about preferences, build relationships with the older person, and be perceived as approachable to provide them with feedback. Each week, we nominate a team member to share a meal with our older persons in their dining room for a few reasons, including to hear the feedback as it occurs at the mealtime, to share the dining experience with the older person and see what it's actually like to eat dinner or lunch in our dining rooms. And of course, to build the community with our older people and make it easier for them to approach us and provide us with feedback. Of course, we do hold food-focused meetings monthly. Quarterly, we hold a food forum where we present the new season's menu. We sample some dishes from that menu and we also discuss the next proposed menu. We're currently in the process of implementing a pre-release of the new menu to our older persons a week or two before the food forum to allow the people more time to review and provide more meaningful feedback about the upcoming menu. In all the other months, we offer what we call a chat with the chef, which is a less formal forum held in the dining room of various units to discuss everything around food and dining with the chef manager. We also like to learn from our older persons and staff alike, similar to what Craig said. We share recipes. Staff might bring in cookbooks. We've actually co-designed a cookbook and published that with another cold provider with the favorite recipes of our older persons. And we like to teach each other about culture and cultural foods. As an example, out of the German culture, we like filtered coffee in Germany. It's quite popular over there. However, we found that some staff may not be familiar with the machines and may add instant coffee instead of ground coffee beans, making for a rather interesting drink. We found that if we share how to make the coffee correctly, the team members get excited by learning how to and making delicious coffee for the older persons, their colleagues, and themselves. It can actually become a point of connection for the team members. In a nutshell, culturally diverse food is not easy. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach or a set-and-forget solution. It evolves constantly with changing demographics, preferences, and perceptions. In my opinion, the key elements for success in culturally diverse foods are communication, feedback, co-design of menus, and willingness to learn.
I was really excited to hear about all your different options, and particularly I might like to visit when you do the next jet plane activity. It sounds wonderful. And thank you both to Henny and Craig. You both gave fantastic examples of how food and dining experience can really help not only for that sense of reminiscence for the older person, but to actually build the residential community, which is something that we're all striving to do. The first question is for Kaitlyn. We're really interested to know, how is Standard 6 going to be audited? We'd really like to we think that that's a question a lot of people might have, and we'd like you to please guide us in how it will be audited.
When we consider what the Commission is looking for in terms of Standard 6, obviously we've covered a little bit in terms of our regulatory diamond, and we've obviously changed our assessment model to a graded approach moving forward. So rather than that met to not met model, under this new audit methodology, we will audit providers depending on the services they offer against the strength and quality standards and provide that graded assessment at the outcome level rather than at each standard. We do actually have audit, renewal and variation evidence collection tools available on the resource library of our website as well. So we have those as well as our sector readiness tools available to support providers and services in preparation for audits. And there's obviously the provider guidance available. But in terms of the Standard 6 space, a couple of questions that providers and services may wish to consider and are highlighted in the guidance that we may want to look at are, I think some reflective things to ask, like how well are your communication and documentation systems working for dietary requirements and changes? Do these reflect health professional, clinical care, medical and hospitality team changes? And how do you actually ensure that that's the case? How do you know that your workforce are trained and confident in understanding, then providing food and fluids that are meeting individual needs, goals and preferences? And this could include texture modification needs, cultural preferences, religious needs or medical needs as well. Are you partnering with individuals throughout the menu design process, as Craig and Henny have highlighted as well? And then again, throughout the ordering process to ensure that choice is actually maximised and cultural preferences are understood and respected? And are there feedback mechanisms in place to ensure that informal and feedback are sought, then open and transparent communication occurs? And do your policies and processes reflect evidence-based contemporary best practice? How do you actually know this? And have you sought engagement with health professionals for support? So there's a few things to consider from our point of view.
A few questions have started to pop up in the Q&A. The first one for Craig and Henny: how do you manage choice for those on textured modifications, including after hours and snacks?
For all of my sites, we make our own moulded foods, and we don't just make, I guess, a meal in advance. We make a number of options in advance, so that they match what's actually on the menu. However, if the older person decided that day that they didn't want, say, chicken, there's also beef, there'd be fish available. So I guess with our modified foods, we've moved away from the cooked fresh of the scooped food, and we have moved to the using the molded food, which means it's cooked in advance. So that allows us to actually provide choice. Because you are cooking in advance, you know, the older person doesn't just have to have one option available. There's many more.
And Craig, there's a question that's linked to that. How do you address modified food textures when considering culturally diverse foods? And have you come across any challenges so far?
Look, we do. I don't see it really as a challenge. The menu, I guess the menu is a menu, and you make up a menu to suit a lot of nationalities, I guess, a lot of variety of food. Where there's a will, there's a way in making sure that your sauces are accompanied with the right meal. You can make varying components of any meal. I think it's really just sitting back and looking at your menu and working. I recommend everyone to work with their dietitian. A dietitian has I guess is a new world to actually tap into, because they will have ideas how you can bring nutrition back into certain meals. But I think it goes hand in hand. If you're going to develop a menu, have your dietitian with you or review it, because they'll come back with ideas of how we can actually spread that across our population, I guess. So my biggest recommendation there is develop a standard menu based on what the older person wants to see, etc., and then work with your dietitian to put it into place so that the dietary requirements are being met day-by-day basis.
An anonymous attendee is asking, what do you recommend to support dining experience culturally, not just the food offered?
As Craig said, we work with our older persons, and it really becomes working with the current cohort, asking them, what would you like? How would you like the dining room set up? Do you want to have, as an example, tablecloth versus no tablecloth? And that will capture the cultural aspect in that as well. Yes, we do have that German heritage, but it doesn't mean that we have the cuckoo clocks hanging in all of our dining rooms. So it is really suited to the current cohort, because our older persons, they come and they go. That is the nature of the industry. So what works today may not work in 3 months' time. So we need to move with that, of course, within reason. But in that, I would just suggest to speak with the older persons, get together with them in a resident meeting and ask them, what do you want? What would you like to see? And then address that within reason, of course.
What does a day look like when you have to cater for vegan, vegetarian, kosher and halal in a single meal?
Busy. So many of those meals, I think, you can cope with that. So some of those meals, I guess, kosher, generally a kosher meal wouldn't be in your mainstream aged care facility, just because kosher is extremely specialised, and it's separate cutlery, it's separate ways of cooking, 2 kitchens. I had experience with that at Jewish Care in Melbourne whilst I was doing some work there. So that's a very particular, I guess, area. But in terms of actual diet codes and doing meals for vegans, vegetarian, main meal, every kitchen should be able to cope with that. Every menu should be able to cope with that. If you sit down and you look at your number of diet codes that you will have from your residents, you build your menu around that so that you can, and I think if you go in that way, you'll actually simplify your menu far easier. And I think if you think you may have 6 to 10 different, I guess, diet codes, then sit down and work out what menu items will fit within that, and then develop a menu with your dietitian. And it will come out that there's many foods that are capable of you can achieve those with minimal effort, really. But it does require you to be experienced, and any I guess chefs that have real good food experience will be able to achieve that quite easily.
Somebody offered a scenario of, my mum is unhappy with the food at the facility she's living at. She's not eating and she's losing weight. Does she have any right to complain? And what does the Commission do in this sort of scenario?
This is a matter that we definitely would see or may see through the hotline and is referred to our unit for general support and advice. So in this circumstance, when it comes to us, we may discuss what makes the caller's mother unhappy with the food and really start to unpack the issue, providing that listening ear as well, because sometimes people also just want to be heard. We then would prompt the caller to consider feedback mechanisms, especially like Craig and Henny have both pointed out. Have these issues been raised with the provider before, and what has been said and done? Is there open and transparent communication around this, and are they comfortable raising it with the provider? Regarding the fact that they aren't eating and they're losing weight, is there any additional monitoring in place? Are they monitoring for signs of deterioration? And this is usually guided around the services policy. So we might have a chat to the caller around what the provider, what additional steps they have and what they would usually follow. So staff training, or is there a process? And having that discussion with the provider for what they'd like to see, or any allied health referrals such as dietitians or speech pathologists as well. And then this can help guide the caller as to what the next steps are. If they did want to lodge a formal complaint at this point, they feel like they are at that step, then they are more than welcome to, and it's within the individual's right, as we are here to listen and help resolve their issues. So within our call complaints handling process, we aim to work with the older person and their representatives, any workers, responsible people, and the providers to ensure that concerns are raised and addressed. So we do have a variety of complaints pathways that open confidential and anonymous, but basically we consider the wishes of the older person. We ensure providers are meeting their obligations. It's risk-based and proportionate, and it focuses on meaningful and sustainable outcomes. So there's a bit of documentation collection, a bit of back and forth, but we aim to address any concerns that there are from there.
One more question. With cultures that have rice or pasta with meals, how do you address this as a texture modification, as often it is potato that's served?
Yeah, look, potato you can obviously serve. Rice we actually don't as a textured modified meal, just because of the risk that would pose. But again, I think for Benetas, on admission, we actually explain that when we actually go through the menu, so that if you do go to a textured modified meal, this is the alternatives that would be in place. So I think all operators really need to look at the admission process and explain, because you should have a menu there to show the potential older person. This is our menu. This is how we change the menu. This is how you can interact with us in regards to the menu and change it. But when If you do, you may not. If you do move to modified diets, this is also what is available and how we do it. And I actually explain to a lot of our residents what it is, how it is. At a couple of sites, we've actually done kitchen tours and actually taken the residents through the kitchen so they can actually understand the process as well, which has really helped them, I guess, see where the kitchen's coming from and what they have to work with. And I think it's created a common bond between the older person and the kitchen staff.
Thank you, everyone, for your time. And have a safe and very peaceful holiday period. Thanks, everyone.